Discover the power of one.
In any kind of war, we must understand the element to successfully defeating the enemy is to recognize him, his nature, his weapon, and his strength. My story is I was born in Beirut, Lebanon. My family believed in everything John and General Jerry talked about, and this is my life story. I was trained by my mom. I was trained to go in the way of jihad. I came to the United States of America to fulfill this. I was commissioned to come and wage jihad in here in a stealth message, which is take it under the civilization while the people slept. We were working to change the nature of this nation. I was a child soldier. The word of Allah in the Quran says, let the Muslim take no friends of the unbelievers. He said specifically, to safeguard against them in jihad, meaning to protect yourself against them with holy war. The Quran revealed and gave permission that fight is granted. Allah said fight is granted against whom war is made, which is the Jews and the Christians. Islam came to destroy Christianity and Judaism specifically. And the refugees understand this in Islam. When they come into different civilization, that is part of war waging. This is called hujra. Hujra is what's right now celebrated in the White House. It's called the month of Ramadan. This is where Islam went from peaceful to radical. And we need to understand that is prescribed to them in the Quran, and that has been fulfilled in the United States of America. The traditions of Muhammad. Bukhari, he is one of the top 2 most credible on the hadith, which are traditions of Muhammad, Bukhari and Muslim. He said, fight until there's no affliction. That's what Muhammad says. And what is affliction to the Muslim? Affliction if there's any other God than Allah. So the Muslim are commanded to fight anyone who stands against them that has other God than Allah. And the Christian and Jews worship different God because Allah is not the same God. We do not worship the same God. Allah is not the true living God. Jesus, the living God, Jehovah God Almighty is the living God, and this is who we trust in. So the Quran said, the Hadith said, is to testify there's none other to be worshipped except Allah. And the Quran says, if they do this and they worship other God, it is your legal right to chop their neck off and to wage war against them and take them down and change their culture. That is commandment by Islam. Why we're talking about this is because we need to prepare you to see the understanding, the heart, the spirit, the souls of the Muslims. Because you're coming to a place, America since 9/11, America hit the snooze button and went to sleep, and few people have woken up and still don't understand this from that. So learn from this, and it's put before you to break this silence. Now, we need to understand the Great Commission of Islam. The Bukhari, the Hadith Bukhari, Muhammad says, Inni umirtu an qatil al-shu'ub. I have been commanded by Allah to war against the people of the world until there's no other God but Allah and Muhammad, his prophet. So therefore, what happened, the other people, nobody talk about the rest of the Hadith, it is the silent Hadith. He said, when they do not concede to you, you have the inheritance right to their women, to their children, to their land, to their finances, to their home, to their government, everything they own, it is your inheritance. So when the Muslims are coming here, when I came here to America, I said, MashaAllah, blessed be Allah. Why? Because my inheritance is vast. And when I did something to sin, when I slept with a woman, it was my right to sleep with her because she is my slave, according to the teaching of Islam. Now, Muhammad Hadith, it speak about those. All those are written down, and there's Everything is verified. Islam, when it's at 2%, it's peaceful. It is nice to you. They tell you we're people of peace and we are coming to live in your country to be equal and have a liberty. But when they accelerate and they go to 5%, at 5% they become radical and they start exercising their radical action. That's how fast it goes. When they go to 10%, look what's happening in Germany, in France, in Sweden, in Denmark. They become radical, and now no-go zoning, now you have a state within states. What does that mean? The Muslim will establish Islamic civilization within the unbelievers' world, the Western civilization. The theology of all this is the Muslim to establish what's so-called Dar es-Salam. When the Muslim talk about Dar es-Salam, it sounds really good because it says that's the house of peace. We are here to establish house of peace. But what precedes the house of Dar es-Salam is the Dar of Harb, which is the house of war. So therefore, they have to conquer their enemy first before they establish Islamic peace. But then when they establish Islamic peace, they must establish what's so-called the dhimmi status. What is the dhimmi status? Is to enslave the culture. You have to pay, just like what John said, jizya, you have to pay penalty tax or any other form of penalty or slavery, or we have to push you to death. We love you to death otherwise. And so, therefore, today, when we see what our current administration has done, in Obamacare, today, this jizya taxation has taken place. So it's put upon the American people, while the Muslim people are exempt from this. And so therefore, when a Muslim go to a hospital, guess who has to pay his bill? You have to pay for it. And this has been exercised. So we need to understand the term of things are done against the American government. I wish I had more time to speak on this, but we're going to move forward. In Islam, they have 5 pillars, but the 5 pillars are not as important as the invisible pillar. When the Ottoman Empire was defeated in 1924, the invisible pillar was taken off, and that's pillar number 6. It's called jihad. Jihad is a cornerstone of Islam. It establishes everything to the Muslim, what to do and how to do it according to their Quran, Hadith, and the most important part is Sirah. Sirah is the biography of Muhammad. We look at the Hadith and we look at the Quran and we forget the biography, because if the Hadith and the Quran do not line up with Sirah, then it is not real. Jihad is prescribed to the Muslims. It's in the Quran and it is in the Hadith. But Allah prescribed it, like what Brother John was saying. He said, if Allah said it, you could not come against it. Why? Because you are an apostate. You have to be killed or come back to Islam and ask for forgiveness. So therefore, Allah has prescribed jihad. In the Quran 2:16, it says He would love for us to understand it's a good thing for us, and we'd better do it, when I was a Muslim. The cornerstone is jihad. The Islamic State administration. Islam is a peaceful, we ask, is Islam peaceful or radical? Many people, they look at what the media is telling them. The media is induced. The media is not, we're praying that the media will be our friend. We're praying for all this, but know that the media is sending all kind of wrong signal. I mean, you never hear them talking bad about the Muslims. So what happened is there's 2 houses we talked about in Dar Harb, Dar es-Salam, and this is what they bring about the nation. When they invade a nation, they bring about this structure, and they start hitting the nation and shaking the nation until it's weakened, little by little, to affect every level. And their theology, the stealth jihad, is to move the top of the mountain, the structure of the nation, where the nation, is affected the most. And they steer the nation from the top of the sphere of influence. So the Quran speaks about this. It says, stir up the Muslim to go to jihad. Ali Yusuf, he said, fight is prescribed to you. Allah promises eternal pleasure for those who fight in jihad. The first drop of your blood, you forgive 70 of your immediate family. They don't have to go to hell, because the Quran says, وَكُلُّ مِنْكُمْ وَارِدُهَا. All Muslim will have to go to hell. And the only one they don't go to hell are the mujahideen, or the martyrs, those who died for the sake of Allah. So the first drop of his blood, he saved 70 of his immediate family. And the second drop of his blood, he will obtain 72 virgin women, half angels, half women, and with everyone, according to hadith by a Muslim, it says each one will have 72. These women will be virgin after you sleep with them, and Allah will give you 100 horsepower. It's about what you can eat, how much pleasure you can have, and how all this, everything that is forbidden on earth, it is applicable in paradise. So this is the ideology we're fighting. I don't want you to look at the funny part or the serious part. I want you to see how they think, the psychology and the spirit behind this thing. Because here we're trying to break the silence, to bring an understanding, because the tribe of Hazakar understood the time. And my job is to bring the time to clarity before you, so you can understand what will be facing from this point on, unless, Trump trumps them out. Sacrifice, it's commanded to you. The Quran speaks about all this. And who is the enemy of Islam? The Christian and Jews. The Quran spoke about it time and time and time. They cannot be here to be equal to us. They are here to destroy our culture. I came to destroy your culture, to steal your children and turn them against you. Because our biggest war machine is your young men and your women. If we deceive them and turn them against you, then this culture will clash. Our job and our hope is to create a great divide. The great divide has been established, where we went to the jail system to recruit black African American and send them to special camps to train. We are training them to clash with this culture. Why? Because we want them to be Muslims, and we told them this culture has enslaved you and we're giving you freedom. While the truth is we enslaved them, and until this day we call them slave in our culture and according to the teaching of the Quran and Hadith. So therefore what happened, there are two kinds of jihadis, and that's a very important point. They are, both of them, they're terrorists. They believe, in the same methodology, but one has a peaceful methodology and one radical methodology. And the ultimate goal, what John said, is Sharia. I will not talk about this anymore. So Sharia is the Islamic Supreme Court. It dictates to the Muslim everything. It is their constitution, and it constitutes to them every way of life. Going to the bathroom, chopping their nails, cutting their nails off, blowing their nose, getting married, killing the enemy. Everything is dictated. A Muslim could not have his own understanding, and that's why he has to become slave to Sharia, slave to Allah and Muhammad in order to become a good Muslim. Versus in Christianity, you have to step out of your slavery into your freedom. Does that make sense? It's a medieval law. It pre-existed Islam, and it was incorporated into Islam until Sharia came, and then Muhammad was making it up as he goes so he can manipulate the people. So now, who are the violent jihadists, or the violent jihad? There are Al-Qaeda, Boko Haram, Al-Shabaab, Hamas, Hezbollah, Al-Nusra, all these, everybody says these are the bad guys. But there's the other kind of guys that nobody's talking about, and these guys dressed in suits. These are not dressed in the fatigue, military fatigue, or have an AK-47 or grenade. They are dressed to kill in a suit. They came here to deceive, because the Islam says, وَمَكَرُوا وَمَكَرَ اللَّهُ وَاللَّهُ خَيْرُ الْمَاكِرِينَ. That's in the Quran, meaning Allah has this, the Christian and Jews have deceived, and Allah also deceived, but Allah is the greatest deceiver. Muhammad, in his hadith, in his tradition, he said, Al-harbu khuda, war is a deception. He said he came to deceive humanity to conquer and establish Islamization, a slavery law. So when we look at all this, when we look, who are these, the one they dressed in suit? They are the Muslim Brotherhood. And as you look at them over there, these are the pictures of the fighters. But when you look at the men of suit and women of suit, this is Homa Abdedin. She is a fighter, she is a warrior, and she's steering, Hillary Clinton to go and establish Islamization. She is part of the move. Then we have a whole group in here. They speak into Obama's life, and they go to the White House all the time, and they write policies. These are the Muslim Brotherhood. They are shifting our culture as the nation slept. Their strength is when the nation is weak. This is very important. Very important slide. If you look at the center of the slide, this is the Muslim Brotherhood. This is the mother of all evil. The motherhood is the birther of all those organizations and connected with all those. If you look at all the fronts of the Muslim Brotherhood and who they are working with, you will find all of them here. They are part of the American civilization, shifting our world into destruction. This is important to understand. Sharia law is made from a trilogy. We refer to it as a trilogy. What is the trilogy? It's the Quran, Hadith, and Sirah. The Quran is only 14% of Islam. Islam is only 14% religion. The rest of Islam is a civilization government based on jihad and conquering civilization, while it has every element of government. So when we have an American constitution and Islam come to the United States of America and start asking for Sharia law, they're asking that we don't want adhere to your constitution, we want Sharia law. 65% of American Muslim citizens says we want Sharia law. This is not a hate message, y'all. This is a message to wake up the sleepers. There's a word right there when we speak to the valley of the dead bones, and there's a message to awaken the sleepers. We need to awake, and we need to take this. This is not for you. You are a messenger to take this and teach everybody about this. Get those material, get it into people's hand. Tell them what General Jerry said, what John said, and don't tell them the joke. Tell them the issues. So let's look at Sharia. Let's examine Sharia. When we look at Saudi Arabia, our friend. The Saudis are our friend. But then we look at ISIS, our enemy. This is what the White House and everybody's talking about. ISIS is bad. Well, what's the difference between the two? They exercise Sharia. They do it. They commanded to have beheading. They have the same writing on their flags. They have the same sword. They have the same everything. 40% of Sharia law, it is to destroy humanity. 151 people, their head were chopped by the Saudi Arabian government. So when ISIS is chopping, there's no different. No condemnation. You know, they are the same people. Sharia is Sharia. There's no friendly Sharia and dark Sharia. Jihad is prescribed. 164 verses in the Quran says you must commit jihad. 1/3 of Sharia law, it says you must commit jihad. What does that mean? Jihad is prescribed upon all Muslims. But we need to understand that, how jihad works. Because the Muslim, when they are doing jihad, many times they don't tell you they're doing jihad. They say, I'm a jihadi. I'm lying to you today. What they do is they tell you something. What they tell you in English is not what they speak to each other in Arabic. Jihad permits, destruction, possession of wife, children, home, finances, land, government, destruction of civilization. It is a termite army that destroys humanity. Jihad is the invisible pillar. It's the cornerstone of Islam. Learn that. It is part of their belief. You said, well, there's moderate Muslims that don't believe in jihad. Yes, but according to Islam, they must be sent to jail, or they must be penalized, or they must accept Islam, because Allah is not a liar. When He prescribed jihad, it is prescribed upon all Muslims, not just the moderate or the radicals. It's the promise of Allah. It's obligatory. Islamic doctrine of al-wala wal-bara. This is very important doctrine. This is the scale for Islam. Al-wala wal-bara, it's a strategy. It's specifically to conduct to the Muslim everything that they need to do, and it's to love what Allah and Muhammad loved, and to hate everything Allah and Muhammad hated. So if you could not follow the doctrine of al-wala wal-bara, you are not a true Muslim. What does it prescribe? Jihad. Jihad is in the way of Allah, that is only 3%. To be a better Muslim, to fight in yourself, to increase yourself to be a better Muslim, that's only 3% of all jihad. But then you have stealth jihad, you have political, you have jihad of the womb, when they move into nation and they birth into nation and they bring multitude. Like in France, the birth rate is 1.6 per French citizen, while the Muslim are 8.1%. So therefore, they are birthing so much. Now, in my next message, which is the second half of this, I will be talking about refugees and how the refugees coming on and why they've been brought in, with all latest statistics and what's happening with all this. You don't want to miss the last one. So, and then you have three other elements. There's banking, there's judicial, there's religious, there's immigration jihad. All these are part of jihad. But then you have three other elements, which is al-taqiyya, which is lying by omission, and then al-muruna, which is to practice lying to the best way and deny what Islam says. I rebuke you, get out. So therefore, what happened is, this is al-muruna, to practice their art of war. And then al-kitman is to tell you about the peaceful part of Islam and not the radical part of Islam. So therefore, what happened is they tell you partial. If you kill a man, you kill the whole world. Well, read on. That's for the Jew. If you kill the Muslim man, then you kill the whole world. But it's not for the Muslim. If they kill a man, they kill the whole world. So it's a lie practice in deception. The prime authority, in the Quran, which is Hadith, Bukhari, Muhammad, and Muslim, they spoke specifically. It says, when you are weak as a Muslim, in the Hadith, it says, when you are weak, laugh in their faces, but curse them in your heart. Another hadith said, when you are weak, what happened? Befriend them until they become your slave. These are about Muhammad, the Prophet of Islam. And another hadith, it says, al-taqiyya is to be practiced until judgment date. So they are commanded to practice al-taqiyya all days of our life, even when they are not practicing it. It's an oxymoron, sorry. So, but that's the Jews and the Christians deceive, but Allah also deceive, and Allah is the greatest deceiver. Allah has 99 names, and they are not Jehovah names. Some of them, Al-Makir, which is the one who exalt himself above all gods. Just like, read that in the book of Isaiah 14, 13, all the way through 17. This is what Satan did. He exalted himself above God. And so what happened when you see all this, the name of Allah, Al-Makir, Al-Mumit, the murderer, his name is murderer, and all those other names, the name of Satan in the Bible. Now remember, the Quran says, the Lord inspired the angels with the message, I am with you. Give firmness to the believer. I will instill terrors in their heart. The unbelievers smite above their necks and smite their fingers off. And guess what? They're doing this. It happened in Oklahoma City. Nolan, he did, when his employer fired him because he's causing da'wah in his place, he beheaded the woman's head. The other one, there are several of them. Then what happened just with the gay bar? This man, he was practicing homosexuality, and we have no problem against homosexual, we have problem against the issue. And what happened? To sanctify himself, he went and murdered homosexual people on the month of Ramadan to sanctify himself and make a place for him in paradise by killing what? By killing mushrikeen. What is a mushrikeen? Unbelievers. So what happened? What he practiced, he pledged to Allah, and his father celebrated because his son today is in paradise according to their teaching with virgin, and he's no longer homosexual. This is what we need to understand, the philosophy, the unveiling extra. Islam today is the Trojan horse in America. Our president is a Muslim, and and his administration, they are here, they came to the United States of America to change the culture because America withstood Islam from advancing. And every time terrorism rose up, America subjugated, radical Islam and brought it down. But yet we freed millions upon millions from Afghanistan to Kosovo and all those. We fought for the Muslims. We set the Muslim free. America is a righteous land, but why are they coming against the righteousness? Because they don't want Christianity. They don't want Judaism. These are very important. For every nation, there is, mountains of influence. America, these are the mountains of influence. But I want you to change something. We need to change art and entertainment, and we put it under media. And we need to split the military, take it out of the government, and make it another mountain. That's how we need to set our seventh mountain, because we realize what General Jerry spoke about this morning. The culture, the mountain of military, if it's destroyed, then America will lose its power. Write those changes, write it down. And if you want to ask me about it later on, call my wife. Mountain of government. I will not talk about this whole lot, but they change our policies. They change our rules of engagement, how to fight against jihadis, against radical Islam. Then when we look at the mountain of media, this is a special man. His name, Talal bin Abdulaziz, Prince Talal. He is one of the Saudi prince. He is one of the richest people in the world. He has over $50 billion in his asset. Today, he's involved in ABC, NBC, CBS. He has stocks in all those places. Then in Forbes, in Four Seasons. We need to understand how the enemy is working, and we need to meet them right there at the field, and we need to educate people. That's why the media is speaking against America. That's why media is supporting Islam. That's why what's happening in our nation. So we need to know who's on our side. God is always calling, who's on my side? Let us reason, declares the Lord. Mountain of education. Report claimed that Saudi prince, and I believe John can talk about this quite a bit. The Saudi prince, what happened? He is building Islamic centers by giving a great amount of funds to big universities, specifically the Ivy League universities. And their target is not just for the university, their target on writing the curriculum for the children. So when they write the curriculum of children, they changed America, they removed the Constitution, they put Islamic Constitution little by little, and now they corrupt the system, and now our children will grow up to think that there are Muslims, that Christianity and Islam is the same. It ain't so, y'all. That's my Southern Lebanese accent. This is what they teach in our children. They said Christianity and Muslims serve the same God. That's what they teach in our children. Islam teaches equality. Islam emphasizes fairness, justice, human affairs for all believers. Islam tolerant, embrace Jews and Christians, yes, with a sword. Muhammad and Jesus are only prophet, the only prophet, and teach with direct, no relation to, they just like Jesus Christ is not the Son of God and His only prophet, and and there's no other level of understanding in Christianity. That's what they teach in our children. While they teach, there's 117, teaching on Islam. Christianity shrunk to seven arguments only. So therefore, they are teaching them more about Islam, and it's happening in the education system. You need to understand and know what your children are learning at school, the things that they are keeping at school and not bringing home. These are very important. Sharia law is made up for following: do not gamble, do not eat pork, and do not drink alcohol. Really? That's a pit of lies. Allah is the only God to worship, and He is the only true God. That's what they teach in the children, to change the name of God. In some school, they are pledging allegiance to Allah. Sharia law is good for women and gives them equality of religion. Really? Islam is a peaceful religion. Muhammad was a good man. That's what our teaching are taught. There's another organization, it's called Gulen. Gulen he's opening a Neda school, which is, he said, we don't need fight America with airplane to destroy their towers and what so have you. Let's open those charter schools and change their children while they're on the milk of understanding. And this is now they have the open doors. He had millions of dollars, 150 million, and he is trying to bring America down to be brought down. The military, mountain. I was going to talk about this, but I found, John and General Jerry, they were looking at my notes before I came in, and they talked about it all, so I don't have to talk about this. Forgive me, Lord, for I have sinned. U.S. courts, we have over 80 cases in the U.S. court. They are changing our culture, and I have here several cases, but I don't have the time to talk about them, but 50 significant cases that they are right now taking place, and they have staked Sharia into our judicial system. With all this, I want to let you know, there is no stupid question. If you have a question, get hold of me. I'll be behind my table and ask. Because we're coming to a time, our world is changing. God sent Jesus Christ for one purpose, to bring liberty and justice for all, to bring to all humanity, to bring the light of God, to bring freedom. Freedom is not obtained unless we go after it. Freedom must be earned. As Muslim, as when I was born a Muslim, anytime you're born to a Muslim family, you are Muslim automatically. But in Christianity, if you are born to a Christian family, you are not a Christian unless you are born again, unless you profess, unless you declare, unless you walk. But what's that have to do with anything? Our Constitution is made on Christian principle, found by the Word of God, by the glory of God, for His purpose. And when we are not exercising our godly civic duty and our country civic duty, then we have failed physically and spiritually. It's a time for the warriors to arise, and the rise of the warrior to stand and put on the full armor of God, and not just sit there, but to engage. Engage with your vote, engage with your voice, engage with your prayers, engage with salvation. Speak. When we speak, God created the heaven and earth when He declared. Your declaration is the most important part of the last days. Declare and proclaim, and the Lord will say, I am with you, I have declared. Thank you. God bless you. And God bless the American nation.